In the 1940s, Harry Harlow placed mechanical puzzles in monkey enclosures. Without any training, the primates immediately began unhooking latches and pulling pins. They weren't hungry, and they didn't receive treats. Harlow realized he was looking at a third drive, a form of intrinsic motivation where the only reward was the joy of the task itself. This is the brain operating in its most self-directed state. It is a natural play schema where the act of mastery provides its own psychological fuel. It suggests that mammals are biologically wired to seek competence. Our drive isn't always a transaction. Sometimes we act simply because the challenge is there. But then Harlow rewarded the monkeys with raisins. Their behavior shifted from calm play to stress because the reason for their effort moved outside. This is the over-justification effect. The brain recategorizes the activity. It is no longer play, it is now labor. To see how this specific cognitive shift scales into the pressures of adult life, we have to look at the three archetypes it affects most. There is the artist, there is the student, and there is the lover. The artist archetype creates for the sake of the process. In this state, they are fulfilling a basic psychological need for autonomy, the feeling that they own their own time and decisions. But when that art is tied to a commission or a sale, the locus of causality moves. The reason they are painting is no longer internal. It is tied to the financial expectation of the client. The brain doesn't always interpret this money as a benefit. It often registers the reward as a mechanism of external control. This triggers what researchers call psychological reactance. It is a biological pushback against being controlled, which often leads to a sudden, involuntary drop in creative interest. By monetizing the passion, the spontaneous act is structurally converted into a mandated chore, separating the creator from the very joy that started the work. The student archetype is naturally fueled by the need for competence, the basic curiosity to understand how things work and to master new skills. In many institutional settings, that curiosity is replaced by a grading system. The A becomes the ultimate external reward, designed to standardize the learning process. This fosters contingent self-esteem. The student learns to equate their personal value with a score on a page, rather than the depth of their understanding. This creates a dependency on the deadline rush and the validation of the grade. Instead of engaging in the slow burn of actual learning, the student begins to chase the short-term dopamine spike of the metric. When the grade becomes the sole objective, the curiosity required for long-term mastery is sacrificed for the sake of the numbers. The lover archetype seeks relatedness, the psychological need for genuine, emotionally reciprocal human connection. However, this drive is often exploited by emotionally draining friendships. These connections are frequently defined by conversational narcissism, where one person uses the other as a listener without ever giving back. Social exchange theory describes this as an unbalanced transaction. The lover is over-functioning, pouring emotional energy into a relationship that lacks reciprocity. Eventually, the lover becomes completely drained. Because their needs are consistently deprioritized, their emotional boundaries begin to dissolve under the other person's drama. This specific dynamic can lead to learned helplessness. The lover begins to believe that no matter how much they give, the situation will never change, and they stop trying to protect themselves. What began as a pursuit of connection has been inverted into a paralyzing cage of obligation. By chasing external carrots, like the commission, the grade, or the approval of an emotional vampire, the individual has starved their core needs for autonomy and relatedness. When these nodes shrink and collapse, the result is amodal motivation. This is the terminal state of burnout, a complete loss of the desire to act because the internal drive has been replaced by a system that no longer provides a reward. When the external validation inevitably dries up, the individual is left with no internal engine to generate their own momentum. Reclaiming that fire requires a conscious effort to dismantle the labor schemas we've been trained to follow. Understanding the over-justification effect is the first step. It allows you to recognize when a reward is actually hindering your performance and your joy. It is the difference between acting for the why, your intrinsic purpose, and acting for the what. One allows you to own your actions. The other keeps you waiting for permission. Protect your agency. set boundaries against transactional relationships, and move back toward the work you did before the world started offering you raisins.